Morning, kids. Just a quick little video. I've been sitting here reading through your responses on the my article's thesis forum, and I'm getting a little bit scared. So let me make a couple suggestions. If the thesis that you found in your article is a fact, like for instance the ACLU argues blah blah blah, and it's a summary of their argument, that's a summary of their argument. That cannot be your thesis. Your thesis will have to be the ACLU's argument is invalid or fallacious or whatever you want. Remember, you have to show the learning from this unit. So if your thesis statement is a fact, like this is what they argue, that's a fact. That is what they argue. You can't critique that. Your thesis would be their argument is fallacious or not fallacious, whatever you want to think. Some of your colleagues, the following people I noticed: Elijah, Tristan, Miyako, Faith, Soraya, and Diana seem to be getting the idea in the things in what they posted in that forum. So you might want to check out their posts and my responses to their post and my responses to some of your other posts. Also, Bernardo's response seems to be on the right track. There seems to be an implied thesis, argumentative thesis in what he wrote. So those folks are sort of on the right track. Some of the rest of you are scaring me a little bit because I'm feeling like maybe I'm going to get a summary of an argument rather than a critique of the argument. We're done with summarizing. We're critiquing now. So we're applying that information in that's in the chapter in your textbook. All right. Carrie mentioned this woman in Kentucky, this county clerk in Kentucky. That's an interesting argument on both sides, but you have to be really careful to articulate the argument, not to just rail on the woman one way or another. We all have our opinions about her and what she did. But we can't just express our opinions. Again, that's expressing opinions, not critiquing an argument. That an essay that just expresses your opinion of what happened down there in Kentucky is not going to be effective. So what you have to do with that situation, and I'm happy if you want to write about it, I'm happy to help, but you're going to have to isolate the arguments. So here are a couple. One argument that's articulated is that public servants who work for the government should, be required to do their jobs no matter what their religious beliefs are. So their religious beliefs should be secondary to the duties of their job as a public servant. That's one argument. I'm not taking a position on that argument. That's one argument that could be critiqued effectively. Another argument on the other side is that this woman is engaging in her right to civil disobedience, as articulated by Thoreau and Martin Luther King and others. That argument has been put out there, that a citizen who feels a law is unjust has not only the right but the obligation to disobey that law in order to get it changed. So that argument's out there too. And again, I'm not taking a position on that argument. But those arguments are clear and can be critiqued. And an essay that just simply rants on her or supports her position is not going to be effective because there's no argument. That's just a position paper. It's not an analysis of an argument. So if you want to write on that issue, it's great, but you need to isolate an argument that you're going to critique rationally. And that's the danger of stuff like that. Anything having to do with religion, there's that danger in there that we just end up ranting about religion or other things, and we don't actually meet the requirements of the assignment, which is to identify an argument and then critique it. So for some of you who are if your statement of your thesis of your article is a statement of fact, like so-and-so argues this, that's a fact that can't be argued. You'd have to go on and say, so-and-so argues this, and I find their argument to be fallacious or not fallacious because you have to go on and state your position vis-a-vis the argument that you've isolated. There's a resource in the, and if you don't do that, your essay is not going to be effective because it's not going to do what the assignment's asking you to do. So if you have any doubts at all, please let me help you. I'll have a forum going on next week in which we can work some more on focusing this stuff down. If you need some help, I'm happy to help. There's a resource in the resources area. It's a PowerPoint called Common Mistakes in Thesis Statements. It is very, very good, and I'm going to suggest to you that you take the time to look at it. It doesn't last but about 5 minutes, and it will really help. But remember, your opinion, and I know you're sick of hearing this, but I'm getting really scared this morning. The opinion you're going to render in your essay is your opinion of the argument, not the issue. So you can't tell me about this woman in Kentucky and what you feel about what happened. That's not relevant to this assignment. What you've got to tell me is there is this argument being made by one side or the other, and I find that argument fallacious or non-fallacious, and by definition, if I find it fallacious, then I have to find logical fallacies. Everything builds on everything else, and everything builds on stuff that we've introduced and practiced in class. So if you veer off in left field and do whatever you feel like doing, you're not building, you're not crafting that assignment. You're just doing whatever you feel like doing, and that won't be effective. So the real challenge of this is isolating those arguments and then critiquing them for the reasons that we've talked about in class. Not because your mommy says it's a fallacious argument, but because you've examined it using the tools you've gained and you find it to be fallacious or not or whatever. Okay? So just look over your posts in that forum, that thesis statement forum again, and see if you can try to reformulate them in ways that will help you meet the requirements of this assignment. And then view that Common Errors in Thesis Statement PowerPoint. That'll help some too. Next week, we're going to be doing peer review. So as the assignment suggests, you should find one article. Yes, there is another article coming. Don't worry about that article now. We'll talk about that next week. Find one article, critique the argument of the article, and prepare a draft for peer review next week. It'll be the same deal. You'll upload your drafts on Monday, and then you'll exchange drafts by email or however you want to do it for peer review next week. Okay? And next week I'll explain to you where that second article fits in. But I didn't want to muddy the waters this week. So just do what you're being asked to do this week, and we'll add to that next week. We'll build on your foundation next week. Okay? But check out those thesis statements. You will have to identify an argument, or else you're going to just give me a summary of the argument, and we've already done that. We need to move on now to critiquing. So you have to state the argument and then judge it on its logical validity. Okay? Talk to you soon. Thank you for all you guys for asking about my arm. It's better. The ice seems to be helping, and I'll be fine soon. I just have to realize I'm not a young whippersnapper anymore. I can't haul gravel around in wheelbarrows for 8 hours a day. All right, you guys, be good. Bye.